Welcome back to 10 Mentors. Today's episode is for anyone who looks fine on the outside, but feels a little tense on the inside. The kind of worry that sits in your head most of the day for many days. I want to share why I read Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living and what it changed in me practically. Just real tools for when your mind won't stop running. I didn't read this book because I wanted to become positive. I read it because I was tired. Tired, like my mind was running a background program all day, every day. Even when nothing was technically wrong, I was bracing, planning, replaying, forecasting, disaster, like it was my second job. I'd be making coffee and thinking about money. Sometimes I'd be in a meeting and thinking about my health. I'd be in bed and thinking about my parents getting older. And the scary part was how normal it all felt. And then I read Carnegie and it hit me. I wasn't suffering from my life. I was suffering from the mental film I kept projecting onto my life. And what's interesting is Carnegie isn't alone here. Eckhart Tolle would call it living inside psychological time. Your mind dragging you into yesterday and tomorrow until you miss the only place life is actually happening now. The Stoics would call it mistaking what's outside your control for something you can grip with enough thinking. Even Buddhism basically says the mind manufactures extra suffering by clinging, resisting, and rehearsing. Carnegie just writes it in plain practical language. So this episode is why I read the book and what it did to me. I'm going to share 6 ideas from it and how those chapters actually changed how I handle worry in real life. Lesson 1, what's the worst that can happen? This sounds like basic advice until you do it properly. I remember waking up at 3 with that tight chest feeling that something's wrong alarm, and my mind, of course, immediately went to work. Not helpful work, but the kind where your brain opens a spreadsheet of catastrophes. It started with one tiny thing at work, a short message from HR saying, "Can we have a talk Monday?" And it was the kind of thing that could mean absolutely nothing, but my nervous system treated it like an emergency. And I went straight to the full horror story. I'm getting pushed out. I'm going to lose my income. I won't find something at this age. I'll be embarrassed. I'll have to downgrade my whole life. Everyone will know. Carnegie's question forced me to stop spiraling and do something concrete. Define the worst in daylight. Worst case, I lose the job. Then what? I cut expenses. I use savings. I update my resume. I call 3 people. I apply. I take a contract role if I have to. And I survive that hard season. And the moment I did that, the fear shrank. It shrank because it became specific. And specific problems can be handled. Most worry is vague. Vagueness is what makes it feel infinite. Lesson 2, live in day-tight compartments. This one might be the most important concept in the book, especially for those jumping into their past or future or both. Carnegie talks about ships having compartments. If water gets in one section, you seal it and the ship doesn't sink. I realized my mind had 0 compartments. Every door was open. The past was open. Regrets, mistakes, things I should have said differently, moments from the past that still made me cringe. The future was open. Money, health, career, aging, relationships. What if I'm too late? And I lived in the hallway between them, which means I live nowhere. This is where Tolle lines up perfectly with Carnegie. Carnegie calls it day-tight compartments. Tolle calls it stepping out of psychological time. Different labels, same move. Stop letting the mind drag you across timelines you can't fix right now. Day-tight compartments means sealing today. Not forever, just for now. I tried it one morning. I literally said out loud, not next year, not next month. I'm doing it today. And I chose one simple, real thing to do. I sent the email I was avoiding, made the appointment I needed to, did a 20-minute workout, cooked something decent, and put one problem into motion. It was almost ridiculous how calming it was, because it reminded me the best way to prepare for tomorrow is to handle today properly. Not perfectly, properly. Lesson 3, stop loss your worries and stop paying people with your peace. This was the chapter that changed my daily life. Carnegie talks about a stop-loss order in stock trading. You decide in advance, if this drops to here, I sell. No drama, no debating. You protect your downside. And I realized I had no stop-loss on my mind. Because worrying is often not about big life events. It's the small repetitive mental spending, like replaying a meeting for 3 days because you think you sounded stupid, or obsessing over a message that felt cold, or looping the same resentment at home about who does more, who remembers everything, who carries the mental load, or stewing about a sibling who never helps with your parents while you do all the calls, the organizing, the guilt, the logistics. Carnegie's point is harsh but accurate. We pay $50,000 of stress for a $5 problem. And for me, a lot of that $5 stress came from people, not evil people, just people who triggered me. A colleague with a tone, a boss who could make my stomach drop with one comment, a family member who could make me feel small again in 5 seconds. And here's what I had to admit. They weren't ruining my day. I was donating my day. I'd replay their words in the shower. I'd rehearse what I should have said on the commute. I'd be making dinner while mentally arguing with them like I was prepping for the district court. And Carnegie says something that stuck. When you hate someone, you don't punish them, you reward them with your sleep, your appetite, your peace, your energy. So I put a stop loss on it. I decided, how much anxiety is this worth? 10 minutes? Fine. One honest conversation? Fine. One boundary? Fine. But after that, I sell it, because after that point, it's not problem solving anymore. It's just rumination stress with a storyline. And this is where the Stoics come in. They'd say, if it's in your control, act. If it's not, release. Rumination is pretending you're acting when you're just burning energy. And forgiveness, real forgiveness, isn't approval. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's not inviting them closer. Forgiveness is saying, you don't get my nervous system anymore. You don't get to live in my body as tension. You don't get my sleep. You don't get my appetite. You don't get my mood with my family. So now when my brain tries to reopen the same loop, I catch it and I say, stop loss. You already paid enough. Then I redirect my attention to something real that improves my life. A walk, a workout, a task, a plan, a conversation with someone I actually love. That one shift made me realize something simple. Peace isn't stolen, it's spent, and you get to decide what's worth the cost. Lesson 4, don't cry over spilled milk. As you get older, the version of spilled milk isn't dropping a glass, it's years of regret. It's, why didn't I take my health seriously earlier? Why did I stay in that job so long? Why did I let my relationship drift? Why didn't I save more? Why did I ignore the signs of burnout? I had a phase where I lived in that self-blame loop, and it felt productive because it hurt. Like punishment meant growth. But guilt doesn't fix anything. It just drains. Carnegie's point is simple. The milk is spilled down the drain. It's gone. The past is the past. You can't undo the spill. So why are you still standing at the sink, staring at it like your attention will reverse time? This is where a lot of philosophy starts nodding along. The Stoics would tell you straight, the past is outside your control. You can learn from it, yes, you can extract the lesson. But if you keep trying to mentally rewrite it, you're doing the one thing they warn against most, wasting your limited life on things you can't touch. Buddhism would frame it as a form of attachment, clinging to an outcome that no longer exists. You're holding on to a version of reality that isn't real anymore. And that gap between what is and what you wish was is where suffering grows. Tolle would call it identification with your story. The mind grabs an old scene, replays it, and says, this is me, but it's not you. It's a memory. And the moment you see that, you can stop feeding it with attention. Even Nietzsche, in his own brutal way, has a version of this. His idea isn't forgive yourself in a soft way. It's more like, can you affirm your life enough to stop fighting what has already happened? Can you say, it happened, and then move forward with strength instead of resentment? So Carnegie's question becomes the only useful one. What now? What can I learn? What can I change now? What do I release? When I dropped the self-punishment, I finally did the thing I needed to do. I took one small action, one appointment, one plan, one boundary, one routine change. And my energy came back because my mind stopped living in reverse. Lesson 5, the law of averages. This one is for people whose brains love worst-case scenarios. As you get older, you've seen enough life to know bad things can happen. So it's not irrational to be alert, but worry takes possible and turns it into certain. I remember having a health worry, nothing major, but of course, enough to send my mind into detective mode. I'd Google, I'd scan my body, I'd catastrophize. And the more I did that, the more symptoms I felt, which then fed the worry. Classic loop. Carnegie's approach was use probability before panic. Ask, according to the law of averages, what's the chance this is actually the worst thing? And what's the chance it's something ordinary? Then do the grown-up thing. Get facts. And until you have facts, refuse to live like the verdict has already arrived. That one habit, not living inside the worst story without evidence, lowered my baseline anxiety more than any motivational quote ever could. Lesson 6. Kick worry out by getting fully busy closing the loops. A lot of worry sits on top of unfinished things. The email you haven't sent, the financial admin you keep postponing, the dentist or doctor's appointment you keep meaning to book, the conversation you keep rehearsing instead of having, the decision you keep circling without making. I had a night where I couldn't sleep because of money worry. And instead of lying there letting it chew through me, I got up, opened my laptop, and looked at the numbers. It took 22 minutes. And the wild part was, even if the numbers had been bad, the uncertainty was worse than the reality. And again, Carnegie isn't alone here. The Stoics would call this turning thought into action. Marcus Aurelius is basically one long journal of stop complaining, do the next right thing. Not for motivation, for stability. Aristotle would say you become what you repeatedly do, not what you think about doing. Action is how character gets built. So if you want to be a calmer person, you build calm through repeated, small, deliberate behaviors, closing loops, keeping promises to yourself, and doing what needs doing. Even existentialists land here in their own way. Meaning doesn't arrive through overthinking. It arrives through choice, through commitment, and through doing. You don't think yourself into a better life. You act your way into one. And modern psychology basically agrees. A lot of anxiety is amplified by avoidance. The task grows in your head because it's never made contact with reality. So now, when I notice I'm spiraling, I ask, what loop can I close in the next 20 minutes? Not to fix my whole life, just to stop the helplessness, because helplessness is where worry breeds. So what did this book do to me? It didn't remove problems. It removed the extra suffering my mind was stacking on top of them. It taught me that worry is often just mental noise pretending to be useful. But it's not. So define the worst. Seal today. Stop lost your spirals, especially about people. Let spilled milk stay spilled. Use probability before panic and close one loop at a time. If your mind is loud tonight, don't fight it with more thinking. Pick one tool from today and use it. One small action, one closed loop, one boundary. That's how worry loses power, one day at a time. Thanks for spending this time with me on 10 Mentors. I'm Dan. Borrow what helps and leave the rest. Take care. See you next time.